Greetings and welcome to my talk, How to Stay Sane in an Insane World. Thank you for coming today. Really good news. This is a talk about mental health, good mental health, bad mental health. So I want to say right from the get-go that I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist, not a counselor, not a therapist. I'm none of those. But I am somebody who's had a very serious mental illness, and I learnt how to overcome it and, manage it. And I sort of want to talk to you from a point of view of experience. You've got two ways to listen to this. You can listen for you right now in the office, at work, whatever, or you could listen on behalf of somebody else at work, somebody in the family, a mate. What I really ask you to do, actually, is to listen in both capacities. Really important. There are references to cars in this, talk. So if you're allergic to that, step away from this talk. Only joking. What I hope you are going to come away with today is an understanding of resilience, using a toolkit that's based on an old-fashioned 9-dial dashboard. And I hope you'll come away with an insight into what a mental illness is and what you can do about it. That's the really important thing. So what is mental health? I mean, we hear about it all the time, don't we? Go, oh my God. Mental health really, in my opinion, is the ability to cope with life, all the things that life throws at us. It's an ability to cope. It is basically an ability to make good judgments, good decisions, and to react to things in a balanced way. That's when we've got good mental health. There are very few statistics in this talk. You'll be delighted to hear. One I'm going to give you right now is that 1 in every family in this country will experience some form of poor mental health. That's not too frightening when you think about the physical side of things. So without further ado, I am going to tell you a story. So the story I'm going to tell you is my story. What a coincidence. The story begins when I was 25 years old, and I have to tell you that's more than 2 years ago. It was when I was working in the music business, running a record company, and it was a fantastic period in my life. I'd been running this company for 4 years. I had recently bought a 3-bedroom flat in Battersea. Worked very hard to get to that point, but got to it. Had a deluxe, funny, gorgeous girlfriend called Loveday. Yes. And I had a Mini Cooper, custom made by Mr. Cooper himself. And if that wasn't enough, I had 3 singles in the singles charts and 2 albums in the albums charts just soon after. So it was really all fantastic. So what could have gone wrong? What happened was that my mother, very sadly, died the following year. And I hadn't expected this. She had cancer, and I was really, I'm a positive thinker, you'll be okay. But she didn't survive. And we were very close, and it was a shock when she died. My way of dealing with things in those days was to drink and to work. And within a very short space of time after her death, I decided to do something radical. And that was to give up my safe, secure job running this record company and set up a new company with a great friend who was equally well thought of. We put the word about that we were going to do it. Instantly, people said they would back us. So it all looked like it was peaches and cream. I had to work out a notice period. 5 months later, the sort of shoots of an economic recession sprang up on the horizon, all the people who said they would back us disappeared, pulled out. My partner basically said, we better not do this. We haven't got the money. My judgment, my decision was no, au contraire. We will do it, and I'm sure we'll get the money. Hope you don't mind. Let's work out of your office, which was not the best, in a horrible part of North London. 3 months later, all you need to know is that my whole psychological interior had changed. My ability to make decisions, to focus, to concentrate, had all gone. All the energy I had gone. All the positive thinking had gone into negative. I would think I was sort of pretending that nothing was wrong, which was pretty dumb, because people knew. And I just hoped, my motto was that this will go away. It was like having a really bad gash on your leg and thinking, yeah, it'll heal, it'll go away. Well, like a bad gash in the leg, this didn't, and it got a lot worse. And I would say 2 months later, I'm in the office, I'm staring at a wall all day, and I'm believing that I'm hopeless, that I'm useless, and that this is never going to end, and that everything I'd achieved was all luck. And now my middle name was doubt. And the only thing I wasn't doubting was that it wasn't going to get any better. I split up with Loveday. That didn't make any difference, made it worse. I split up with my partner, and I said, I'm splitting up with the music business. Took myself down to a tube station, went to the end of the platform waiting for the tube to run in, and I wanted to jump in front of it. That happened twice. Fortunately, it didn't happen. About a few days after the last attempt, my old boss rang me up, and he said, I've heard you're really unhappy. Didn't know about the tube. And he said, basically, we want you back. We'll offer you anything you want. Cars, money, it doesn't matter. The fact that he made all this offer, love, value, etc., swung a lever inside me. And within 6 weeks, I was back, not his offer, back to my partner's office, and I was working 14, 15 hours a day, seeing 3 or 4 bands a night, finding a hit record, and all the confidence back, all the decision-making back. I could focus. I was fearless, and I was really going to make it, I didn't want to be that awful person, standing on the tube platform. In this state, the more fearless you become, the more ideas you get in your head. A lot of them are very good. I came up with an idea to license what was then called the Radio 1 in Concert series. This had been going for 15 years. Led Zeppelin, Bad Company, Black Sabbath, Joe Cocker, T-Rex, the Pink Floyd, David Bowie, everyone had done it. And I knew that the tapes of the recordings were sitting in a vault. I went to the BBC, suited and booted, and I had a long conversation with them that I wanted to license 36 of them. Long story short, after a lot of haggling, they said, we will give you a piece of paper that says, subject to massive contract and lots of red tape, you can have 36 on the following terms. Took the piece of paper, I'd made up with Loveday, which was great, and basically I took her as a treat. I got a plane and we went to New York. And I went to see Mr. Big in a big record company, and I said, Mr. Big, here's the list, 36 concerts. These are all going to be what we used to call albums. I'm going to sub-license them to you for North America. You tell me how much money you're going to give me. What? He said, do you really think you can get all these people, Led Zeppelin, David Bowie, Sting? I went, Mr. Big, for goodness sake, of course I can get them, which wasn't totally true. Anyway, after a lot of messing around, he came back and he said, okay, providing you can prove that you've got absolutely 1,000% legal binding statements from these groups, their managers, their revenue companies, saying they'll do it, we will give you an advance payment of $5 million. Thank you very much, I said. Walked out. I was not thinking about I wasn't thinking about providing. I was only thinking about $5 million. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So it seemed logical to me, the first thing I did was to hire a chauffeur. And the chauffeur was called Frankie. He had a stretch Cadillac. He'd been in the police. And he really liked us. And he thought that I was a member of the British aristocracy, which I'm not now and wasn't then. Tried to say, no, don't call me Lord Thomas, but he kept on doing it. Went home to England, secretly hired another chauffeur, secretly bought him a Mercedes. Did a lot of things in 2 weeks, secretly, that were all empire building. One of the things I'm going to tell you about is I decided 3-bedroom flat was not sufficiently classy enough for me. I needed a 5-bedroom house and 3 bathrooms. And I found one very easily on the Chelsea-Battersea border. And it was vacant. And the owner, an old boy, liked me. And he said, having shown me 2 or 3 times, he said, I'm going away on holiday for, 7 weeks. Here's the key. When I come back, let's exchange contracts. I said, okay, matey, good. What he didn't know was I had already shown the house to a firm of builders who'd said to me, if we can go in the following week and do all the work you want, completely reconstructing the house, we could get it done by the end of December in time for Loveday's birthday. It was now October. And I basically, soon after that, the builders were putting pressure on me to either do it or not. And I decided he was away, the owner was away. Well, what the hell? It wouldn't matter. I'll just let them go in, do the work, and then I'll pay for it later. It's all right. That was my decision. That was my judgment, which seemed very good at the time. Oh, except the owner came back from holiday after 9 days, and saw his house completely badly redone. So he went mad, and I was like, keep your hair on, don't worry about it. But that wasn't quite his view at all, or his violent son. I then decided it was time to go back to America, to go back to New York, a town where I was taken seriously. I took a friend who was Paul McCartney's drummer at the time. We flew first class back to New York. Frankie was there on the tarmac to meet us. He said, you seem a little stressed and agitated. I said, Frankie, there have been some problems. Violence, this, that. I'm getting a bit paranoid. He said, I'm going to take you to your hotel suite. You're to lock the door and wait because I'm arranging something for you. And when you hear, you're to open the door. Well, I did hear knock, 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 knock. I opened the door and I looked up, and there were 2 6'6" armed bodyguards. They said, is your name Lord Thomas? I thought about it, and it was very clear to me that I was, and I said, yes. They said, have you ever worn a bulletproof vest before? I said, not on a Saturday, no. They said, put it on and step away from the windows. They said, do you always stay in this hotel? Clenching their nose. I said, this is a 5-star hotel. What's wrong with it? They said, well, our top clients stay in. I said, where? And they said, well, the XXX. I said, well, you had better book the best suite of that hotel right away, and you better book yourself right away for the next 10 days. Get on with it. And they did. And a lot of things happened in that next 10 days. Some, well, quite a bit of it, not printable. I just want to say, if anybody's seen the film Hangover, it's kind of like that, but a little bit darker and a little bit worse. I make it sound funny. It was funny to a very small degree, but it is very dangerous as well, because the money that I had ran out. And at the end of 10 days, I rang a friend who was in New York, a school friend of mine, and I summoned him over, and I said, I need money, honey, get on with it. He came over, walked through the double doors of this suite. Him and his girlfriend were frisked straight away, and they saw me sitting behind a grand piano in this massive sitting room, in a suite that was 3 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, kitchen, dining room, staff quarters, panoramic view over Central Park. Today's money, $18,500 a night. I'm sitting behind a grand piano. I'm speaking in Italian. I don't play a note. I don't speak a word other than buongiorno. Draped around my neck are 2 girls who don't look like Loveday. And they are calling me Lord Thomas whilst chatting to Paul McCartney's drummer over there. Other than that, the scene was entirely normal. Now, if you ever find yourself in this situation, okay, do what they did, because they were brilliant. What they did was they didn't go, oh my God, what are you doing? You know, they went, hey, love, wow, this is such a great place. Love it. I love your security. Whew, great guys. And your new girlfriends. Wow. And there's, Thingy Bob's Paul McCartney's drummer. Wow. Oh, this is what you've always deserved. And I am going, yes, thank you. You are true friends. I love you too. They went, oh my God, is that the time? Sorry, Jeremy. We've forgotten. We've got an appointment across town. We've got to run. See you later tonight. I'm going, be lucky. Don't worry. They got out of that suite and they phoned London immediately, and they organized a rescue mission. And believe me, it is very, very, very difficult to rescue somebody in that situation, in that state of mind, and then to fly them back. They did it. I'll explain it all when we have a Q&A. And I thought for a moment that I was going to be going to spend 2 days in a health farm in England. I thought that was the sort of thing I'd agreed to. When I got there, I found that it wasn't a health farm. It was somewhere called the Royal Bethlehem Hospital in Beckenham in Kent, which is a very serious, very good mental hospital. And I spent 6 weeks there. The people were very kind. They were patient. They were very strong physically. And they gave me a lot of medication. They gave me a lot of talking therapy. And by the end of 6 weeks, I was desperate to get out because I knew how much money I owed. And I just wanted to go. And they said, you can only go if you promise not to get any stress, that you'll take the medication and you'll stay away from alcohol. I went, yeah, I'm doing it. Got out, and the first thing I wanted to do was to see Loveday, because that's really what mattered to me. And I just needed to know that she was, on side. So I went round to see her, and she gave a very, very wonderful speech, which was really along the lines that she had to hand in her resignation. I came back to London not feeling brilliant, and set up to start trying to get this company up and running again for the concerts. And it was impossible in the end because I owed so much money. The stress was ridiculous. Went into a massive, really bad depression. And then for the next 2 years, up, down, until it all ended. And it ended with me losing everything. House, went bankrupt, really bankrupt, and unemployed, homeless. Oh my God, it was awful. And what I'm going to do is when you hear the sound of a huge bass drum, which is going to be a little bit later on in the talk, I'm going to tell you how it all worked out, okay? And things can work out. But I've got 5 things I want to tell you about that made the difference for me. Okay, on we go. Okay, so thanks for that. Just a little housekeeping note. We will be handing you a digital wallet, or even a physical wallet, of certain handouts that you're going to see. So if we zoom through them, don't worry too much, okay? So what I've just described to you is something called bipolar disorder. And bipolar disorder is exactly the same thing as manic depression. What it is a very serious mental illness of extreme mood swings. Now, I'm not talking about being a bit moody, fed up, or a bit cheerful. I'm talking about serious extremes. And you can see from the slide we've got here, you can see what happens in the low and in the high. And I should have said, really, it's like being on a pendulum, a very slow-moving pendulum in which these things are activated. Statistic is that 1 in 100 will have bipolar, and you can have bipolar 1, bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 is where you only have it the once, and bipolar 1 is repeated. So it's as straightforward as that, and you will see that a lot of people who have it are often very creative, normally quite bright, and you'll see how, when we get to how it all worked out, what can happen for it. So moving on, types of depression. Well, for me, there are 4 main ones. Reactive, my cat got run over, I am depressed about that. Endogenous, I am depressed, there is no reason, I just am, which can be a clinical depression, and these are really ones requiring medication. Dysthemia, which is where you have a low level, grumpy, it can last for 2 years, but you can cope. And then manic depression and bipolar. This is a chart that I think is very important for people working in companies, or anywhere actually. What am I talking about? The warning signs, and it doesn't need to turn you into a grass, or a gossip, or a policeman, or an amateur psychiatrist, or social worker. We are human beings, and sometimes, it's important. Knowledge is power. It's important that you see these, look at these signs. Why is that person repeatedly bursting into tears? They're a big rugby player. What the hell's going on? Why can't he seem to make any decisions? Why has he lost a lot of weight? This is, we're now in the 21st century. We need to sort of grow up a bit about this subject and start being kind to people and helping people. Now, the dashboard is what I referred to earlier. I'm very pleased with this. I created this ages ago, and the idea of it is to help, where you think, oh, mental health, good, don't know. But if you see it visually like this, these dials, these are the tenets of good mental health. Have a look. And I don't talk about fuel, and I don't talk about contact much. But what they are, fuel is, rehydration and regular food and good food. Contact is actually making sure you speak to somebody, you are with somebody. Because a lot of us, especially in recent times, have been too isolated. So human contact, very important. But let's speed on. I want to talk now about stress. Stress is probably the biggest cause of poor mental health, apart from one other thing. And all of us do this, don't we? We go, oh, I'm so stressed out, And of course, that's fine, We need a bit of stress in our lives to get things done. But let me just talk first about stress's wicked stepmother. That is something called trauma, and you may have heard of that. Trauma is when somebody dies we love, when we get divorced, when we have to move house, funnily enough, when we get fired, when we are in trouble with the police, when our child is in hospital seriously ill, when we are in Afghanistan under military and under fire, combat PTSD. Those are traumatic. Those can trigger mental illness. You saw it in my own story. Don't need to go into that. And what I want to say to you is that if you look at these dials, if your dials on your dashboard are in good order, you will survive. Because all things happen to us in life. Shit happens. Sorry to be rude. But it does. And, you need to be able to cope with them. And you can cope if those dials are looking good. Ordinary stress, well, what can I say? I mean, most of our stress comes from, unhappiness at home, work overload. Would you believe I'm now doing 2 people's jobs? I cannot believe it. And then stupid things, like, I meant to get that report in. I'll do it tomorrow. I meant to apologise to my wife's parents for calling them old fossils and other words. I'll do it tomorrow. We put things off and it builds stress. Then we drop our phone as we're walking through, the common, and we lose our phone. Oh my God. Then maybe we lose our house keys. Oh my God. And these things build up. And then, we're thinking, do I have a life-work balance? Or do I spend all my time working at home, working at the office? What else do I do? What do I do? And now I've got that whole thing of that guy, that woman I see, who's just a Nazi bully. And I cannot get out of this thing with them, And basically what happens is we become overwhelmed. And we just can't take it anymore. We're overwhelmed. Anxiety levels are shooting up, and we start to get depressed. And what I want to say to you is that your heads are like washing machines. You can stuff them with too much stuff, and then they churn, and they don't work anymore. And you have to be the boss. You have to be the boss of your own mental health. Be the boss of your own washing machine. And this is how you do it. You basically have a routine. I know that sounds boring, but believe me, it works. Have a routine where he reaches for where you have tent pegs. And let's say you have 5 of these in your day, and you decide where you're going to put them, and you decide what you're going to put in those tent pegs with what I'm going to tell you. The first thing that I would really strongly suggest is every morning get up 15, 20 minutes, a little earlier, and take time for mindfulness or prayer. Don't knock it. Or meditation. A lot of us during that lockdown learnt about meditation and its benefits. Any of these things have real benefits, because if you do it and you stop and you have no no sort of phone, computer, anything going on in your head. Let everything fall away. It's a great way to start the day, and you have perspective. And if you have perspective, it can only be helped by gratitude. And you might think gratitude has nothing to do with mental health. Well, it is. It is. There's a lot of spiritual things that are to do with mental health. And if, you probably know someone who's grumpy. I do. And you say, what about doing a list of things you're grateful for? I'm not grateful for anything. My life is really bad. And that's where you have to get a large balloon and bully them. I was going to say something else, but never mind. The point is to say to somebody, just try and write 3 things down. Okay, I had sushi last night. It was quite nice. Yeah, Tottenham won the football match. Yeah, great. My wife's parents aren't coming for the weekend. I suppose that's quite good. Another one. And, that makes a real difference. If you get 10 down, a grateful head and a grateful heart has more perspective. And what it does is it helps you sleep. Sleep is the barometer of mental health. If you go to see a psychiatrist, I bet you £50 they will say, first, tell me, how is your sleep? And if you go, oh, well, actually, I wake up at 3:30, 4:30, and 5 and 5:30. They've already written down anxiety, depression, ? That's how we judge things. You know, and I know, when you have a really fantastic night's sleep, say when you're on holiday, everything's great with the world. Well, that's what we need to repeat. You need 7 to 8 hours good sleep a night. We need to reset, reboot, get the toxins out of our brain that only happen when we sleep. So you need a really dark room. And if you can't get one, use an eye mask. It needs to be completely quiet. If you can't get one, use earplugs. I mean, these are really important, really, really, really important. And it needs to be cool, almost cold. So you open the window if it isn't. Go to bed the same time and wake up the same time. There is no coincidence that sleep, if you want to know the worst form and most effective form of torture in the world right now, it's sleep deprivation. So think about that and get cracking. Exercise. Scientists now know that if you take 15 to 20 minutes a day, walking, cycling, running, swimming, playing squash, trance dancing, as long as you're vaguely out of breath, what happens is oxygen goes into your brain and it attracts endorphins that ward off anxiety and depression. It works, so it has to go in, really. When you're helping somebody who's got mental health problems, it's quite a good idea. Very often, when you've got really bad mental health problems, you don't think you can do anything. You don't think you can get out of bed, and you don't want to do anything. If you suggest to that person that maybe they'd consider 3 things: get out of bed, brush teeth, go downstairs, you can then do another 3. Things need to be bite-sized for a lot of us. And a lot of us make a mistake, don't we? We go into the office and we're going, right, today I'm doing 36 things. That's on my list. And, we spend the day rearranging it. Just do 3 and another 3. Manual tasks are vital for good mental health. Winston Churchill was a severe depressive, and he used to paint. But when he got really bad, he used to build walls, build them up to about that height, I suppose, and then knock them down, and then he'd start again 2 days later. an achievement, and it got him out of himself. Nelson Mandela, whether he was 25 years in prison in the Pretoria State House, the White House, or Buckingham Palace, he wouldn't allow anyone to make his bed. He did it. He had a ritual, and it had to be done a certain way. He owned it. It was really important for him, and it gave him a sense of self-esteem. It gave him a sense of order. If we order the external, we can order the internal. Anger, basically, if you add another letter called D, you have danger. And my view on anger is this. People who you and I might refer to as Mr. Angry because they cannot control it and they're just shouting all the time, need to go on an anger management course. Some of us who think we're quite cool people don't like to be seen to being angry or expressing anger. And the secret, the thing that I have to get across, is anger is something that has to be expressed appropriately. And if you are a cool cat and somebody continually, comes and punches you on the nose, and you're going, hey, no problem at all, no problem, and they keep doing it, and you go to your little room and you go, so angry, I'm going to kill that person, I'm going to get my shotgun and kill him. Oh, that wouldn't be very cool, not in this company, I can't do working with this company. No, what you have to do is you have to find ways of expressing it. And it might be that you have to use this, and you might have to find a pillow, and you might have to bash that pillow until it goes. You might have to write about it, sing about it. You just have to do something about it that is appropriate. Really important. My favorite subject, really, in mental health is self-esteem. Self-esteem is what we think about ourselves, okay, and what we think other people think of us as well. It's not just think, it's believe. And, clearly in life, sometimes, our confidence, our morale drops, at certain points. It could be a breakup relationship, it could be failing exams, it could be whatever. So most of us do that, but some of us have a bad start, like a bad childhood, mum and dad, awful, ugly, shaming divorce, or in our family, I was the runt nobody cared about, or my brothers and sisters were the golden ones. Dad went to prison. Mum became a transvestite sailor in Frinton. Shame, awful. I then went to a school in which, I was called millions of names. All of these things can get put in an invisible backpack and carried through life that then become facts in the head, and they're not facts. But they start to inform somebody, and they start to go, I am never going to amount to anything. I'm less than other people. I'm not worthy. I'm not worth it. I just, no one will ever love me, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not mocking it. These things happen, and what it's like, somebody said it, some bright spark said it's like driving a car with the handbrake on. And you have to know that you can do something about poor self-esteem. You have to get rid of all those thoughts and change them for positive. There are plenty of good books on the internet, on Amazon, you can get. Believing in Myself, Ernie Larson, is one. There are handbooks. There's very good courses, and it's really worthwhile. Really, really worthwhile. And I would just state this. I'd say this to kids at schools, and I'm going to say it to you. Somebody with really good self-esteem doesn't cheat, doesn't lie, doesn't bully. They stand up for themselves, but they also stand up for other people. They do the right thing. And they do the right thing even when no one is watching. And harder to achieve but necessary. They don't have shame or embarrassment. Okay? Now, if you can get to that, and you have to work at it, you have to do esteemable things, but the esteemable thing, the first one is for you. That's working on this subject. And I really, end on this with that just try doing a minimum of 2 things you don't want to do a day. Clearing up the cat sick, repaying somebody who gave you too much change in a shop. It's to do with integrity. And if you repeat those, your integrity, your self-esteem will grow. Really important. And, a lot of us think, oh, I know, if I go on Facebook or Instagram, and I get liked by a lot of people, then I'll feel good because I'm liked. Well, yes, it's great to be liked on those things, but that isn't the same. What you want real people in your life. And some of us are lonely, and it's difficult. But if you can have 1 really great mate, that's wonderful. But if you can have 2, that's even better. And if you can have a dog or a cat, a dog that gives you unconditional love, that is just a fantastic situation. And I know that's difficult, but, having friends, good friends, is worth 3 Ferraris in the garage. And now we come to that magic moment when I'm going to tell you how it all worked out. Hang on, there's a man who's about to hit the drum. It's going to be ding! So, 5 things that helped me to get well, 5 things that anyone else who's had any form of serious mental illness need to get well. So, I had been out of hospital for 2 and a bit years, and things were pretty dire, and I was lucky I met a doctor. And everybody has a right to a good doctor, and I was lucky to get mine. And my doctor was a friend. He became a friend, Tony Hughes, and he said to me he was prepared to help me, but he was also prepared to say that I'd been a dickhead for not taking this illness seriously enough and for not having any acceptance around it. And I had no idea what he was talking about, but acceptance is very straightforward. If you break your leg, you need to accept that you've broken it in order to do something about it. If you just run around on a broken leg, it won't work. You do need to reach a point. So you have to accept, and Mike has had to accept that I had a bipolar disorder. And he said, in addition to that, you really have got to take the medication concept seriously. Not just take it when you want. It doesn't work like that. And, for those of you who do know or don't know, bipolar is something that really requires medication. Not many other things do, but in this you do. And you have 3 things you can take. And I'll just tell you about one, which is a drug called lithium. And lithium is something that if you take on a daily basis religiously, it stops you from going through the ceiling, and it stops you through going through the floor. It doesn't stop you from feeling happy or from feeling sad. It just works. And what's important with all medication is knowledge is power. The more you know about it, the better, because what works for you doesn't work for you over there. We're all different. And, it's very, very important to have a good relationship with a doctor who is interested in mental health. And if you're helping somebody who's got problems, use this trick. Write down on a piece of paper when it's bad, when it's better, when it started, what the history is. Put it all down on a piece of paper. Give it to the doctor. Doctors aren't mind readers, and when people who've got problems go to see a doctor, they often say, I'm okay, I don't know why I'm here, I'm wasting your time. So that's why. So that all worked out very well for me. I knew the right diagnosis, the right medicine, and the right dose. Fine. Next thing that happened to me was I got offered a job to run a punk rock psychobilly record label. And I can tell that you're very big fans of that music here today, which is great. I didn't want to do this job. It wasn't good enough for me. And then a friend pushed me, and I did it. And it worked, and it was the best thing I did. Why? Because it gave me a routine, it gave me a structure, it gave me some self-esteem. There were all sorts of weirdo groups, the Anti-Noah League, the Damned, the Stingrays, the Meteors, the Cramps, all wanted to know my opinion as to what they should do and what they shouldn't do. Blah, blah. Great. I got paid. Gosh, that's a new one. And it got me back on track. There were a few blips. I got offered another job to run a much bigger record company, and I did that. And I did that for 4 years. And there were blips, but I was so close to being back. But these blips kept on disabling me, if you like. What were the blips? Well, the blips, let's go straight to the chase. The blips were that I liked drinking quite a lot. And I always had. And it was the one thing I wasn't going to stop. And I worked out in the end that alcohol had an effect on my brain, on my medication, on my condition, on my personality that wasn't that great. It accentuated everything. And so in the end, I stopped. And I never thought I would ever say this in public. But, for me, I didn't become an AA patrolman, but I did join AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And it taught me a lot, a huge lot. And it taught me principally to live without any anesthetic, and that life could be quite fun without alcohol. And taught me about a spiritual path to go down. And it gave me the chutzpah, the confidence, to become a writer. And that's what I did. And I got commissioned to write my first novel, about my time in New York and other things. And that I did on a Greek island called Patmos, the island of the Revelation. I could tell you lots of things about writing a book. Maybe one day I will, but I'm not going to now. All I am going to say is that writing is great therapy. If you, as a child, murdered your neighbor's cats, guinea pigs, and pet, ferret, and buried them underneath a bonfire, and then had a bonfire, and have felt terrible about it ever since, you need to write about it. If that person who broke your heart when you were 14, it still affects you, you have to write about it. You do not need to pin this up on the company notes board. You don't need to do that. It's yours. Get it out of you. Very, very important. So I came back to England 2-3 years later, and waiting for the book to be published, called Taking Leave, by the way. And my doctor friend, lovely Tony Hughes, said, why don't we make a documentary about manic depression? And we did. And we did it with Stephen Fry. And it was called The Secret Life of Manic Depressive. And it was a real hard work, a wonderful thing to be involved in, wonderful thing to be involved with Stephen Fry. And he was great because he took all his clothes off, metaphorically. He was absolutely honest and fearless and brave, and that enabled a lot of people who had this condition to feel less shame, less embarrassment, and they could talk to their mates about it. It was a very big deal. So that was great. And, I went on and wrote lots of books, and it's not about me anyway, this. So I want to say, look, we're coming to the end, we're running out of time. I want to say, I want you to think about what you're going to put in your toolkit. You're going to have a routine. You're going to have tent pegs. What are those tent pegs? Maybe you'll add some others. Maybe you'll add music. Maybe you'll add novel reading. Maybe you'll add going to the gym. Maybe you'll add helping someone else. When we help others, we get better. It's a weird conundrum. The point about all this mental health baloney because it's not a theory. It's something we need to practice, not just go, tick, I've been to that lecture, boring, I know all about it now. So, my point is to say, look, go to your mental health gym, build up some muscles. Practice this, practice good mental health. It'll be better for you. And I hope that, with the dials that we've got, you'll use those and they will keep you fit. And I'll close on this, that it's a bit of a sort of sickly cliche, kindness really helps. I know that it's a bit naughty, but the fact is, random acts of kindness are really important, especially to people who are not feeling great on the mental health spectrum. And, a little gesture here, a little gesture there, it doesn't turn you into a psychiatrist, it doesn't turn you into a social worker, but it makes a very big difference for all of us, because we are all human at the end of this. Well, I hope. And, remember the old cars that you used to drive? Well, I used to drive. And, and they used to have the tyres checked, the pressure. You used to have the oil checked, the water checked, this checked, the battery levels. Boring. That's what we have to do when you go on a journey. And that's what you need to do on a daily or twice weekly basis with the dials to make sure you have a groovy and tip-top life. Hope this has been of help to you. Thank you so much for listening to me. Farewell, adieu, au revoir.